Wonderful. Thank you so much. For those people who are, unlike me, not comfortable with recording, please add your questions to either the Zoom chat or the pad that I shared in the chat. There's a section on questions that you can put in there that won't be, your name will not show up in the recording or anything, so you can feel very comfortable with, yeah, asking questions there. All right. I want to talk today about bringing visibility to open science and open science initiatives, open science projects, because we've seen that a lot of open science initiatives and projects, also open science services, struggle with being seen and getting the visibility they deserve. We've been lucky enough to yeah, get a Oscars EU project to work with open science initiatives to increase the visibility. And this talk is as part of this project for me today. Yeah, my name is Heidi Seibold. I'm the co-founder and co-executive director of the Digital Research Academy. We're a training organization and we do training on open science, data literacy, and research software engineering. So we're an open science initiative ourselves. All right. I already mentioned that we have a pad. You can find it in the chat, but you can also, if you want to open it on your phone. You can also scan this QR code. I'll be sharing this again later as well. Will you use it to get the slides, relevant links, and to engage with one another? All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the backstory of why am I talking about this at all? Why do I care about creating visibility for open science organizations and initiatives? The whole idea for doing this started when Yo from OLS and Joyce and I from the Digital Research Academy met up for a weekend to just basically hang out and talk about like the things that we care about and think about all the time. So OLS is our partner organization in this project, and they care a lot about research culture transformation, yeah, training, mentoring, research, and incubation of communities. And so they're kind of similar to what we do at the Digital Research Academy because we also care about training in open science. So we have a lot of overlaps in the things that we care about. And so we met up over a weekend and went to the spa, went to a restaurant, and just had conversations about like the things that we struggle with and we care about. And one thing that we identified as one thing that we struggle with, but that we noticed also other open science initiatives and organizations struggle with, is outreach, marketing, these kinds of things. We came up with a project because we're good at many things, but as many other open science initiatives, we struggle with outreach and marketing. And this project that we now call OSpark is our attempt at helping ourselves in getting better at it. And while learning about this anyway, we can also help you. So if you're part of an open science service, open science initiative, project, or similar, then this talk is just for you. All right, so I already mentioned like this project OSpark. Why is it called OSpark? It stands for Open Science Promotion and Advocacy for Research Knowledge. And our goal of this project is to empower the open science community by developing learning materials and that are focused on marketing and outreach. We don't only do talks like this, but we have super exciting things coming up. Next week, actually, we're starting our email course. So you'll get 13 emails every Tuesday, every Thursday, you'll get an email. So over a couple of weeks, you'll get emails into your email inbox. And this is not a course about how to write emails, although one email is about how to write newsletters. It's generally an email course about how to do outreach, how to do marketing in the context that we're in, because we're not working in a super corporate context where marketing is super standard, but we're working in a context of open science, right? So this is kind of like a different setting. So if you're interested in that, you can already sign up now. I also put the link in the pad if that's easier for you to find. And then the email course will start next week. And we're super excited about that and looking forward to seeing what you think about it. And then next year, we'll be running boot camps that are a mix of online learning with a flipped classroom course. So you'll be getting also information for self-learning. We'll have 6 online sessions where we meet up and kind of like in a self-help group talk about the things that yeah, are on our minds. And then we'll also meet up for 2 days on site. The locations are still to be defined. If you're interested, just shoot me an email or a message after this talk, and we can talk about more. We're looking for locations, so if you're interested in hosting it, that'd be super cool. So if you're interested in more about that, we have a newsletter, and we'll be sharing all information through that newsletter later on. Also, this link is additionally also in the pad that's linked in the chat. All right, so maybe you've already tuned out by now because you heard the word marketing and were like, well, this is not for me. This is not something I care about or I want to do. Um, but let me tell you that I think this is something we all should think about, unfortunately. Because marketing essentially is about creating visibility, right? So marketing for me also, I'm not gonna lie, in the beginning was like, ugh, gross. But what I was thinking of when I thought of marketing and PR, I thought of like icky sales calls and sleazy content, and I was like not interested in that at all. But what I've learned over time is that it's essentially about creating visibility for the amazing open science initiatives that I'm part of. And that's something that yeah, I find kind of important, right? So um, here we go. This is about doing that. So here are just some examples of what I mean when I talk about marketing, and that's probably something that you've all seen, like social media posts that share information about, for example, events in this case. Some are with images, some are not, but rather with links. There's all kinds of different ways of doing social media. Then you might think about also videos or audio content, like podcasting is really cool for marketing as well. This one is a video about the Open Science Retreat, an event that we organize every year next year in the UK if you want to join us. Um, but it can also be things like a newsletter. So I personally write a newsletter where I share something that's on my mind. It's very personal and talks a lot about the things that I currently think about. So I had a phase where I was thinking a little bit about open science policies because I was helping an organization create an open science policy. But it's also sometimes about my personal dreams or the dreams that I have with other people, like the House of Open Science, that we're still dreaming about and are hoping to make a reality at some point. Oh, oh, now I clicked on the image and the newsletter opened up. Okay, let's get back to the slides. Next to sharing things online, marketing can also be meeting people, right? It doesn't always have to be social media or videos or stuff like that, but it can also mean, hey, I'm meeting someone in the hallway and I tell them about the initiative that I'm part of, and they get really excited. So we have a chat about it. It can also mean that we're giving a talk somewhere like I'm doing now. So this talk is kind of also marketing for our OSPAC initiative, where I'm telling you about the other cool things that you can participate in as part of this project. So marketing can have many different facets and forms, and I think it's important for us to figure out what works for me and what do I feel comfortable with, and also what fits with both the initiative as well as the target audience that we want to reach, right? So who are actually the people that we care about and that we want to reach? So in order to do that, in order to figure out really like where do I want to go with this, who do I want to talk to with this, we kind of need to think about like our own initiative first and think about like what are we all about, right? So the three important questions for that are what, why, and who. So let's get into that a little bit because that's kind of like the basis for good communication and outreach. You have to be very clear on what you are doing. You have to be really clear on why you are doing it. And this is not for you as a person, but for you as an initiative or organization or project. Um, and then also really, really, really important is who are you doing this for? So what's your target audience? So let's dive into that a little bit. Um, what? What are you doing? Who are you? Does your initiative have a name? That's like super important. What are your core activities? What's maybe your tagline? These are things that you should have in place when you do outreach, because then it's a lot easier for you and others to do outreach for your initiative because you're clear on what what you want to talk about, right? Why? What's the purpose of this project or initiative? What's your core objectives? What's your tagline? And then finally, really important, who? What's your target audience? What do they need? What do they care about? How can you reach them? And for these three questions, I've created like a mini exercise that I'd like to do with you now. And if you don't, if you're not part of an open science initiative or an open science project, think of another initiative or project that you are part of, like maybe a research project that you are part of, that you can do this for. So the exercise is the following. You'll open the pad. It's the same link as before that I shared in the chat. You can also use the QR code here. And you try to find the exercise section. And then I made a couple of copies of the template myself, but if you're too many people, then you might have to make more copies of the template. And do fill in the information that's given here for an initiative or project you're a part of. It doesn't necessarily need to be an open science initiative. If you are part of an open science initiative, that's great. For the Panaris folks here, for example, would be cool to hear about what you think the answers to these four points would be for Panaris, and fill that in the pad. If you're done early, we have a workbook with longer workshops, and that the link to that I'll share in the chat as well. All right, so let me go to the pad myself. All right, so we're here in the exercise section. And for the Digital Research Academy, I already filled in the responses. This here is the template, and you can start filling out the answers for your activities down here. So that'd be a cool exercise if you want to participate in that. And I'll stop sharing the screen and let you get started. I'll share the link to the pad again in the chat. And I'll also share again in the chat what the tasks are. Okay, I see first editing happening. All right, I see a lot of people writing, so looking good. Give you one more minute to finish up. All right, wonderful everyone for participating in this exercise. I think it's really important to think about these questions, and maybe you now noticed, hey, I never talked about the purpose of our initiative with the others in the group, right? And this is something where I think this is so it gets so much easier to communicate to the outside world of what you're doing if you're clear about what you're doing to yourself and why you're doing it and who you're trying to reach. If you, as an initiative and a team or collective, know what you're aiming for and what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it and who you're trying to do it with, then communication gets a lot easier and you can also distribute the tasks across more shoulders if more people know actually about the what, why, and who of your initiative. All right, wonderful. Let me share my screen again. Okay, let's get back to the slideshow. Um, yeah, so for everybody who thought, oh, this exercise was interesting and I want to do more like this because I think this is something that we need to talk about as within our initiative. I linked the longer OSPAC workbooks in both the chat and here in the slides, so you can take a look at it and work through it with your team, and maybe answer some questions that are useful for you. All these materials, by the way, are under an open license or license with CC BY, so you can reuse them, repurpose them, and we'd be happy if you would cite us if you do. Um, yeah. All right. So let's continue with the important building blocks of doing good outreach for open science initiatives. And one thing that's kind of important, and I didn't understand why it was important for a super long time, actually, is finding your voice as an initiative. So, yeah. So what do I mean with the voice? It's a mix of things. It's your brand identity. What does your how do uh, people recognize your initiative visually? How you communicate? Is it more formal, more informal, more playful, more sincere? There's different initiatives that require different communication styles, right? As well as your story, or rather your initiative's story. All right. So when I talk about brand identity, I feel kind of awkward because that's not my background, right? So I don't think about brands all day long. But one thing that I liked when we did research on like what are good ways to think about yeah, the initiative's voice, was thinking about the initiative as if it were a person. So thinking about if the initiative, so in my case, if the Digital Research Academy were a person, how would it come across? Would it be bold? Would it be kind? Would it be strong? Would it be fun? Like thinking about these things kind of makes sense to me and kind of like reflects and makes it easier later to communicate with one voice, even though maybe two different people run the social media channel. One important thing, obviously, for other people is the visual component of your initiative. So this is something that has really struck me in the last few months is how important it is to recognize the initiative again and again and again, because then people suddenly say, "Hey, I've seen you around before." Um, so, and that's something that seems to be super important. And yeah, so what are the components, the key components of a visual style? It's the logo, it's the fonts, it's the colors. So for the Digital Research Academy, we have three different types of logos, but this here is our main logo, so the purple DRA letters. Our fonts are for headers, it's universe condensed, and for the general text, it's Roboto. Those of you who are very much into fonts may have noticed that our headers in this slide deck, for example, are not universe condensed because they're not available on Google Slides, but we're using a font that's very, very similar to universe condensed. So those of you who are not super, super into fonts may not have noticed. So we're being pragmatic about that too. So we don't have to be super strict about everything, right? Then we have four colors. Primary colors are the purple and the pink. This is something that I love about the DRA is that we came up with colors that I personally just wear all the time and love. So um, that's really helpful for me because when I do wear like a DRA branded scarf, then I feel very comfortable with that. All right. So, communication style. It's good to have a feel of like what's your initiative's communication style. Are you more formal? Are you more casual? Are you assertive, accessible, traditional, direct? Are you more intuitive or are you more interdisciplinary? Are you grassroots? Like, what is the kind of vibe that you want to get people to hear? And this is less important if there's one person doing all the communications and outreach, right? Because they will have kind of like a feeling for it. And as long as the other people in the initiative are fine with it, that's okay. But if I would say like two different people did like the outreach, and one person was like super casual, super provocative, like very like experimental, and the other person was more like um, yeah, sincere, structured, informative, um, technical, then that would feel like people would feel that, and that would feel kind of like, hmm, how do we see this initiative? And that goes back to like, what if the initiative were a person kind of discussion. All right. And then one thing that I find really important about finding a voice as an initiative is kind of the story behind the initiative. It's kind of links to the why of the whole thing, right? Why does your initiative or service exist? Is there an interesting origin story of how it got started, or maybe also more personal of why you got involved as a person? Um, yeah, so having a story like that and also communicating that maybe in your website on the about section is very, very valuable for people to understand, like, are they actually sincere about what they're doing and how do I know that they are knowledgeable about this and stuff like that. Um, yeah, obviously this should connect to your what and to your why. So getting that ready was a is always a good first exercise. All right, let me check the timing. I think we're good in time. So I'll talk a little bit about communication channels before we head into the end of the session and give you some space to reflect and ask questions as well. So finding the right communication channel for your initiative can be really, really hard and is always in all initiatives that I've been part of, and I've been part of a lot of, especially open science initiatives and communities. This has always been kind of difficult conversations because also we're also so busy, right? So we want to do a lot more and communicate a lot more, but we also have to be honest with ourselves in that we don't always have the time to do videos and podcast and social media, all the channels, and then a newsletter and everything. So it can get just too much. So what's important is to find the right communication channels and try not to do too many, but rather to do those that you want to do and really, really do them. So, formats. Let's think about formats first because It's also important to know what you and your team like using to express yourselves. Because if there's like someone who's really, really into podcasting and wants to do that anyway, and just is looking for a reason why to do it, then let them do podcasts. But if you're rather someone who is like, prefers to communicate in a written format, that's different. So, think of like how you and your team, you and your community, the initiative likes to communicate. Is it in a written format? That could be articles, blog posts, newsletters, something more like visual, like slides and infographics and images. Is it more something spoken, like in a podcast, interviews, talks? Are you super into video, doing like shorts or GIFs, or is it more something conversational where you have like direct conversations with people in the hallway, run live Q&As online, or have coffee chats? Stuff like this are also formats that we should think about as well. And then from that, we can derive like which channels do we want to go to? Do we want to go to social media, write a newsletter, a blog, podcasting, videos, talks, networking, conversations? What is it that we want to aim for? Um, and then also what's kind of important when you think about this is not only yourself, like where do I want to communicate, but also where is your audience? So choose a channel that has the potential to actually reach your audience. So I'm just giving some examples of potential open science initiatives, right? So is your open science initiative really a lot about open source and open code and research software engineering? Then your target audience might be open source developers, and they might be best reachable on Mastodon or through blogs. Is your target audience researchers, because you're an open science initiative at a university, for example, and you're trying to target the researchers, um, maybe both within and beyond your university, then a newsletter, a local university mailing list, but also LinkedIn might be good choices for you. If your target audience is university leadership, these are generally very, very hard to reach. Um, but there, your channel that you want to go for might be completely different and might be rather a conversation after a meeting that you have in a big group with them, and you can get them to talk to you for 5 minutes after. So it really, really depends on where your audience is, because if your audience is university leadership and you just post on social media, they might not have the time to be on social media and might not see it. They might, but they might also not. All right. I want to give some space and opportunity for us to have a conversation, for you to ask questions, maybe share some experience that you've had in the longer workshops that we run with OSpark. We generally try to run them now as like a kind of a self-help kind of exercise where we talk about our situations and give each other support, because we feel like this is really, really helpful for the people and initiatives involved. We don't have the time today, but we do have space and time for asking questions, sharing a little bit of what was helpful for you from today. So I've put sections for questions and takeaways in the pad again, and I'll take a look at that in just a moment.